My name is Ali. I'll be talking about problematic ads on Facebook today. This is work done with colleagues at Northeastern University, where I'm from, and the Max Planck Institute for Software Systems. So we were motivated to study problematic ads because a few years ago, my colleagues and I found that ad delivery algorithms for other domains such as employment and housing can have discriminatory outcomes. This is independent from how these ads are targeted, and we noticed that there were skews along race and gender for legally protected ads. The Department of Justice last year in their own investigation found that Facebook's ad delivery algorithms were actually in violation of the Fair Housing Act, and they reached a settlement with Facebook to implement this variance reduction system that reduces racial disparities for housing advertising due to the personalization that Facebook does. So this was clearly a big issue that ended up having both technical and legal repercussions, which brings me to my question, does this solve the issue of disparate outcomes in advertising? So I'm going to argue today that no, possibly only for housing ads alone, because there's a legal mandate to stop racial disparities here, and this algorithm only works for housing ads. But what about other domains of advertising which are not protected by law? Scams, clickbait, individual vulnerabilities such as an addiction, these are types of ads that might be harmful to expose the users to, but the law does not provide protections here. Moreover, prior work doesn't really give us insight into individual experiences. So we know that some job ads might be delivered to white users more often, but what about individual experiences that are changing due to these algorithms? In your individual experience, you could be someone who sees ads to join group chats with sketchy investment advice, or you're being targeted with get-rich-quick schemes, or direct scam and phishing attempts. Alternatively, you could be someone who sees problematic healthcare content, such as unapproved drugs for digestive diseases, clickbait articles for weight loss tricks, or opportunities to put wagers on your own health. All of these are ads that we have collected by working with users themselves, and our concern in this paper is if some users have a disparate or an outsized exposure to content like this. Fortunately, prior work has looked at a diverse variety of bad and problematic ads, such as Lisa Gack's work on weight loss ad, Eric Zeng's work on clickbait and misinformation ads, and this work has found that users have good reasons for disliking these ads, such as finding them deceptive and untrustworthy. We extend this line of work in our paper by specifically focusing on problematic ads in the context of Facebook, and a lot of focus on the disparate exposure that might be happening. So we ask things like, what types of ads do users consider problematic? And are there skews in the distribution of these ads between users? And if so, who is responsible for these skews? Because we know from prior work that ad delivery algorithms are very much responsible for what you see. So to answer these questions, we recruit a panel of Facebook users. 132 of them. We make sure this panel is diverse by gender, ethnicity, age. And all of these participants install the Northeastern Ad Observer, which is a browser extension that we created. This is able to collect all the ads and the targeting information for those ads while you're browsing. So we're able to collect this over 88,000 ads from these participants. So we get an insight into their ad diets over multiple months and the targeting data for how these ads got to them. From this database, every month we subsample a subset of ads the participants saw that month. We annotate them into a set of 8 ad types. This annotation was done locally at our university by annotators in the school. And after doing this annotation, we construct monthly surveys to send back to these participants. So every month, a participant gets a survey on the ads they saw that month. This entire pipeline is run for 11 months. We do a rolling recruitment to make sure we're balancing the demographics of this panel. But each participant stays for 3 months, so they fill out 3 surveys, after which they retire. One of the challenging parts of this whole process is categorizing these ads. So we're collecting all of these ads from people, and we need a consistent code book. To do this, we use a mixture of inductive qualitative coding from a pilot data collection phase that we did, and deductive analysis of Facebook's policies and prior work. So some of the codes that we come up with for our code book are ads which are deceptive, potentially prohibited, clickbait. These are ads that prior work has looked at, and even in Facebook's policies, they're either entirely prohibited or at least demoted. We also find ads that might be sensitive, so they might not be problematic for everyone, but if you have a vulnerability to one of these topics, they might be problematic for you. And even in Facebook's policies, there might be increased scrutiny for some of these ads. You might need additional verifications to be able to run these ads. And since we're doing a qualitative coding process from the ads that we collected, we identify other themes as well, such as a lot of healthcare ads, opportunities such as education, jobs, and a lot of neutral ads, which are just products, services, sales happening around you, etc. This codebook allows us to basically take a set of ads that we've collected and assign a specific code to each one of them. So the weight loss ad would be sensitive, the handbag ad would be neutral, and so on. And what we find in our annotation is that 68% of the ads that we annotate are basically neutral. So these are products and services around you, subscription services, etc. But possibly problematic forms of content such as clickbait do exist. 3.9% of our annotated data is clickbait, 1.8% of it is deceptive. So this content does make its way through to the platform. Now that we have all of this data annotated, we want to understand which categories do participants find problematic. So the x-axis here is showing the fraction of ads that were disliked in the surveys, and the y-axis is showing the ad types. We see that neutral, healthcare, and opportunity ads are disliked at similar rates, but other ads such as sensitive, clickbait, and so on towards the bottom are disliked at a significantly higher rate compared to neutral, sometimes close to 50% of the time. And I won't have time to get into the details. I would encourage you to read the paper about this, but we also look at why these ads are disliked, and the ads which are highlighted here in red are actually disliked for serious reasons, such as being found irrelevant, clickbait, or scam. So they're disliked and disliked for grave reasons somewhat. But now that we have a sense of what a problematic ad is, as informed by this panel, we can look at whether some people see more of this content. So the x-axis here shows the fraction of a participant's ad diet that was made up of problematic versus neutral ads. And you'll see neutral ads are towards the right there. So the mean of that distribution is 70%, which means on average, every participant's ads were made up of 70% neutral ads. Problematic, on the other hand, has a lower mean, which means 10% on average, every participant sees problematic ads, but that distribution does have a longer tail. So there are people who have higher exposure to problematic ads, sometimes twice the average participant, and less exposure to neutral. So clearly, there are skews, and some people are seeing more of this content than the others in our panel. And we try to understand how this relates to the demographics of our participants. So we model the fraction of problematic ads as a function of your demographics through a regression. And each one of these columns here shows a regression, and the rows are showing the dependent variables, the demographics. What we find here is that women in our panel actually had less exposure to problematic ads, and older participants actually had a higher, significantly higher exposure to these ads. If you unpack that, you'll see that older participants had significantly higher exposure to deceptive and clickbait ads. We also find that Black participants in our panel had a significantly higher exposure to clickbait content. The effect of women seeing less problematic ads is largely explained due to less exposure to financial ads. So this is a class of ads that's considered problematic by users, but in our experience, we see that it includes problematic ads as well as possibly useful tools such as savings accounts. I mentioned in the beginning that ad delivery algorithms play a huge role on who sees these ads, but so we try to unpack that. So when an advertiser comes to Facebook, they basically specify a target audience, hand this over to Facebook. But Facebook has a big say in who sees this ad. So Facebook runs this internal ad delivery mechanism where it's doing the personalization, and the final audience that sees the ad is actually often a subset of the target audience. So an effect that we saw that older participants see more problematic ads, that could have happened both due to the targeting and due to the ad delivery algorithm. So we try to untangle these effects in our paper. So we can look at how the advertisers were targeting. So 50% of the ads, nearly 50% of the ads were using some form of age targeting. So we try to see how advertisers are targeting clickbait, deceptive, and prohibited content. The y-axis is showing the fraction of ads that were targeted to an age group. And if you compare these ads to neutral, which is the gray line, we see that indeed clickbait and deceptive are targeted to older users more often by the advertisers. And potentially prohibited ads are targeted less. So this sort of lines up perfectly with the skews that we saw earlier. The advertisers are using these tools to target older users. But is the algorithm responsible at all? To really isolate the role of the algorithm, we look at these ads that have default targeting. So 21% of the ads in our data set are where the advertiser said, show this to the entire US. This is a huge audience, and Facebook has a huge say in deciding who sees these ads. Within this set of ads, we again do the linear regression models as before, where we model the fraction of problematic ads as a function of your demographics. Each one of these columns is, again, just like before, showing one of these models, and the rows are the dependent variables. We find that even in these like broadly targeted, untargeted ads, women continue to see less problematic ads, and older participants continue to see a significantly more higher fraction of problematic ads, 7.7% to be precise. And when we unpack that, we see that some of the effects that we saw earlier, such as older participants seeing more clickbait ads, continues to persist, but other effects, such as them seeing more deceptive ads, is not significant anymore. We also find this new effect of Hispanic participants seeing a significantly higher fraction of deceptive ads, and women continue to see less financial ads, which explains why they're seeing less problematic ads. So in summary, this is essentially the first study of real user experiences with problematic ads. We put a lot of focus on disparate exposure through these people's lived experiences. And we find that malicious advertisers are aware of how to target these problematic ads, and they're using the tools at their disposal. But even when they know, even when they might not know how to use these tools, the personalization that Facebook runs will sort of behave in similar ways and find the audience for you. And this has the effect of basically both of these factors working together to expose vulnerable users to potentially harmful types of ads. So our proposal in the paper is that in addition to moderation, platforms need some sort of limits on optimization as well. We see that deceptive and clickbait content is a small minority of our data set, but once this content makes it through moderation, it's optimized just like everything else. So we propose that there needs to be ways to stop personalization altogether, either through flagging by users or through some machine learning system. And finally, transparency is valuable to do stuff like this. Facebook does not want us running a browser extension to collect ads, but we're able to get some of this stuff because they give us the why am I seeing this, so we can unpack the targeting aspect. So transparency is valuable to do stuff like this. And with that, I'd like to thank this community, the reviewers, the Shepherd, my wonderful colleagues, and I'm happy to take questions.